Hello, good evening. I'm glad to be here in Portugal again, in Lisbon with Paulo. We know each other many, many years. Uh, want to introduce you one of the smallest actresses in the film. It's my daughter also. She has a very small role, but she came here with me. The film, it's about 1948 in Lithuania. It's after the Second World War, and that was a very hard period. And eventually, for Lithuania, all this the beginning of the century was very hard because everything was going through it. First of all, it was. First of all, it was occupied by Russian Tsar, Russian Empire. Then it gained independence in 1919. Then in 1939, it was occupied by Soviets to have an exit to the West countries. Then it was pushed away through by Germans, occupied for 3 years by Germans, and then again occupied by Soviets in 1945. So all the time in the war, all the time in the problems, big trouble for people, deaths and so on. It's a historical film, so I wanted to make it earlier. I think 15 years I was dreaming 15 years ago I thought I would do it. What was stopping me because I was afraid to, not to do something what I didn't see by my own eyes. Because when I started the film, it was the most important thing what I see, what I hear, all these feelings, what I know exactly me. And that was something else. I mean, some other things which I can imagine because I was. I was born in '64, and Lithuania was not so much changed in Soviets. So and I had my grandparents they for 5, and I all remember them, and they were telling me all these stories. So the film is about partisans, which were fighting, started to fight against Soviet army in '45. They were organized, but there was not an official Lithuanian army. They were organized in the beginning. They had the bigger formations, but then they were all destroyed, killed, and so on. Also, the kolkhoz system came to Lithuania. All more rich people went to Siberia and died in Gulag. The land was nationalized. Everything was. So that is my story of my country. So the history of my country. And they always kept it in me because I was grown with that stories from my childhood, like her. My grandparents would tell me about everything. So that's why I finally decided that we had of course a lot of problems to restore that period. I wanted to any paper, any spoon or something not be later than 48 and so on. So, finally we went to it, and it's today for your judgment.
Okay, we'll see at the end of the film. Just a small story about your relation in Russia. When I first met Sharunas, it was for produce VOS that was shot in North Mongolia or near Siberia.
Next to Mongolia in Siberia.
Siberia.
Not from Baikal Lake.
Yes, and it was more. Not, he was more afraid for crossing Russia than to shoot all the film in the place where he was. For him to cross this country was really kind of much more dangerous than the shooting afterwards we arrived. You know,
It was dangerous because it was a mess then. It was after the Soviets, Soviet Union collapsed. So we were many times stopped by Oman before nothing. It was machine guns, and they just asked for money. Give us money or we stop you, you know. You don't go anywhere.
When you wrote the script for this film, so in the film there is this movement of partisans resisting against the invader, but at the same time, as it happens always inside the movement, you have not only comradeship but also treason and people that should be your comrades in the fight. It happens that some of them they aren't. How did you develop this?
Because it was a truth. It's a historical truth, and it's most of that what we just talked about truth. I wasn't so much taking care about historian books, history of books, and so on, because they vary and so on. Let's say in Soviet times they were absolutely like enemies of everyone, like criminals treated. Now they are heroes. What it was the truth then, and it's now the truth. But it's not that, and sometimes not that also. And but we were reading the diaries of them when they were living in these tents before the death or after the attack or something. They were writing diaries, and nowadays they are printed. You can find it and read it, and it's real. Sometimes very laconic and so on. So that was a time when then betraying was common thing, because all the country was like absolutely all the country was tortured. Everyone, who had, let's say, 2 or 3 cows. There is one scene which we took off, but it's too long. That this guy, he has more than 1 cow, so he hides another 2 cows in the bushes, not to show them, because they will find, and they will say that he's a capitalist, and they take his house, take everything, and later it would happen, because with all the people like Pliauga, the main character, the man, it happened the same. Everything was privatized, and then went to kolkhoz privacy, to government privacy. And these people were sent to Siberia. They all died in Gulag with their families, with children, with kids, and so on. So they are very, very hard times. It's difficult to imagine, I think. And this betraying was, the Soviets, when they came, they find, because Lithuanian language, religion is different than Russian, absolutely, totally.
So Lithuanians are mostly Catholic, and the Russians are Orthodox.
They are Catholic. Russian has their own church. They are Christians, but not Catholic. And language, absolutely nothing to do. So they had to find the collaborators. I mean, to make a system to control it. These 3 Baltic countries. So they were finding people. They were saying, okay, either you go to jail, we send you to Siberia, either you collaborate. So he betrays. He says, okay, I do what you want, and then he becomes a traitor. It was normal.
Survive.
To survive, yes. The same with the partisans. They at 48 they were already dying. I mean, they were fighting like from, imagine, 44, 45, 46, 47, 4 years in snow. Lithuania has a severe climate. It's not Portugal, and they were sometimes under the ground, living under the ground, digging and so on. 4 years fighting with the forces which were coming more and more and more. It was army of Russian army, Soviet army. So they knew that they cannot come back. They will end there in these forests. And so many people, they wanted to live. And you cannot really judge them because they wanted to live. So they found a way to betray, because if they go and say, okay, I betray these people in the forest, so they maybe save their lives and the lives of their families, because the families also were tortured. If someone is in the forest, so the family is tortured also. So how, let's say in Lithuania, there's one hill with crosses, a lot of crosses. It's now it's protected by UNESCO program of culture. In Lithuania, when you didn't have a corpse, a dead man who you bury, let's say someone is drowned or something, it was used in the country to put a cross in your yard for that person. And in that cases, after the partisans were dying, and if someone puts the cross in his yard, KGB immediately comes and takes all the family and says, okay, somebody died, who, what, where, and okay. So at night, they started to make one place in Lithuania. They are burying at night in one place, placing these crosses. During Soviet times, I was living not far away from that place. In Soviet times, it was twice, it was cut down, everything destroyed. And again rebuilt, all the Soviet times. And now it's...
So the Soviet occupation lasted about 5 decades before.
Yes.
But there's still within the Lithuanians this fear of the threatening of another occupation. Because the film you made before, Frost, was about the Ukrainian war.
Yeah.
And there's still this fear?
You know, it is. I think that young people who were born like around the 90s, they don't feel it and they don't understand it. I mean, they maybe literally know it because we have Belarus very close to us, the Kaliningrad area, which is absolutely fluid with Russian weapons. It's very close to us. We have a border. And let's say the war between Russia and Ukraine is absolutely something crazy, which one day before it happened, nobody in Ukraine and neither in Russia would believe that it can happen. Because differently than Lithuania, which was independent, it was independent until 1939, independent country with their own currency, with so on and so on. And Ukraine was never independent later. I mean, it was independent like after revolution 2 years. So, and they speak the same language. They have the same religion and so on. And this, like 10 years ago, everything was business, culture, cinema, TV, everything was the same. I mean, and suddenly this war, nobody could imagine, nobody. So we don't know what can happen. It's sometimes I'm thinking about now we are talking about, okay, it was hard times, it was a war, so on, so on, so on. But if you think what every country now spends for their armies, let's say, for their weapons, every country, enormous, it's the biggest amounts. It's much, much bigger than education, than climate problems. It's you know, and what for they build it? You know, it's when I was a child, it's my grandfather was afraid. He was saying that if there is a weapon somewhere next inside, it might shoot. It's if there is a weapon, it will shoot someday. So I'm thinking what will happen, because they are increasing and increasing and increasing these army systems everywhere, every country, and even they are very happy about it. You know, United States, they are happy because they build a new plane and and Lithuania is happy that it delivers 2% of budgets to defense and so on, but finally it's the same, and people are going to fight, and they are preparing for it.
So, but the atmosphere of the film is we could suffocating, because so this we feel the suffocation the Russians provoke then in the people and the persecution, and there's also this when Plauga is in the house next in the next house, and they put fire, and he has to come out because of the smoke, and the whole film is dark, but you finish with a frame of two birds free in the sky. You mean so that final shot means that so after all this, and so the madness, Plauga, after being tortured, etc., there was the hope for freedom.
You may put it like that, but on the other hand,
why did you shoot that final?
It's hope, you know, and the hope dies the last. So even if it wouldn't be the now freedom, like we say, it still would be hope. It's hope. We are going hell knows where, but we still hope. I mean, we are destroying our world in very quickly and very hardly. We don't care because we live too short. Right? But the businessman think, okay, 30 years, 20 years left for me. Okay, it doesn't matter, right? You know. And everyone talks about these climate problems, and we will destroy the planet. Most of us will die in a much more exhausted way than in COVID or the Second World War. Just because of hunger, and everybody understands it, but it's just understanding. It's like somewhere, you know, high. But hope still exists. You know, maybe some people will be left, and some people will learn something, and maybe people will genetically change it somehow, not to destroy everything around them and to be so proud being on the highest level. You know, when we talk about all the time, human beings say that we are the most developed species. Okay.
Good afternoon. I have a question about the way you film, because most of the scenes that I remember the most are close-ups of the actors or the characters. And why did you choose to film so many scenes where someone talks and it's silent around, instead of doing more group shots or some scenes where you see what's going on around? Why do you focus so much on the faces?
I always focused on the faces with all my films. First of all, because if you want to show what person says or feels, we have to see him. We have to see his face. And sometimes even not speaking, the face tells a lot of things in a long story. Just being silent, but it has to be rather close up. It's a trick of cinema, which is, you know, you cannot zoom with your eye like you do in your eye life, let's say. Another thing is that why there are so many dialogues and maybe talks and so on, because this is period and time which nobody knows and so on, even in Lithuania, that there is a lot of things that must be told, because otherwise you will not catch what is it about at all. It's not enough to say that, okay, Second World War, okay, you can leave the talks, it's just battles, you know, whatever. People will catch it, but in this case, it's difficult. So there are more talks than ever in my films, more.
Thank you so much for coming to LEFFEST'. I had a very enjoyable time watching your movie, and yeah, I was also here when Paul Branco presented a few of us, and it's obviously been quite some time since you've done that movie, and I was curious to know, I guess because the two movies have a lot of similarities, I was curious to know, you know, what you might have thought of your growth as an artist, and do you think back on your previous movies and compare them sometimes, and yeah, how the question is really about, you know, how do you think you've grown as an artist since some of your older movies? Thank you.
If I do feel, or how?
Yes, I mean, do you think a lot about your previous movies, and do you?
It's difficult to say. I don't think about it because, you know, previous movies, they are in the past. I cannot do anything about them. I cannot change them. I have to forget them. I can't do anything. What can I do in each film from the very beginning? To do everything what I can at this moment. I mean, when I absolutely cannot do something more, to make it better, to do something else and so on, or change something, then it is like it is, and then I have to forget. I don't know. It's in the past. I can dream about the next film. It's okay. You are free. But in the films you made, it's already locked, and that's all.
Mm-hmm. Just before we go, because we have another screening starting at 8. Why the guy who plays Pauga's son, is he a Lithuanian poet?
The young guy?
Yeah.
Yeah, he writes books and he's studying acting also.
Ah, why did you cast him?
I don't know, because I saw him, I liked his face, it was interesting for me. Eventually, I don't know why I cast someone. It's a feeling, there is no real strict measurements why you cast someone. Because you like someone, you know. There's a joke I will tell, and there is one guy who is cooking meat on the, you know, for sales. And there are a line of people, and one gets the small pieces of meat, and another gets the big pieces. And this which got small pieces, he torches, says, "Hey, you gave this man the big pieces. Why you did it?" It doesn't matter. And he starts to ask again and again. And he says, "Oh my God, because I like him more than you." So it's the same with casting.
Okay. Well, if there are no other questions, so thank you, Sharunas, for being here. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much and for your patience. It was a long film. And thank you for coming.